What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of How to Street Luge. I'm professional street luge racer Julian Slaney.
What's he searching for?
The ride. The ultimate ride.
And today I'm going to be taking you through how to glue truck tire retread or rubber to the bottom of your shoes so that you've got brakes so you can stop safely and efficiently.
You can't just call time out, stroll on into the beach if you don't like the way things are going.
Firstly, I just want to thank everyone who's shown support for these videos. I'm really glad that people are enjoying them, and I'm looking forward to making more. I am going to be covering, riding technique and things like that in future videos. So be sure to stick around. Keep sharing these videos. The more we share them, then the more people we can get involved in the sport, and we can have better free rides and better competitions. And at the end of my tutorial on how to glue rubber to the shoes, I'm going to post a couple of videos from a few other racers, pro racers from around the world. These guys may have a couple of different techniques that might work for you instead of the way I glue the rubber to the bottom of the shoe. So be sure to check out their clips as well. They're going to be on the tail end of this video, so make sure you have a watch of it, see how different people do it from around the world, and that way you have good knowledge and you can make up your mind on what works best for you. This is pretty much a layout of everything you're going to need. We're going to need some G-clamps or some compression clamps, even a vise might do. We're going to use a couple of bits of timber. The idea is that once we get the rubber glued to the bottom of the shoe, we are going to use the clamps to squeeze that down and make sure we get a nice tight fit. You are going to need some various types of rubber. I've got a few bits here, but today, because we're doing smaller shoes, we're going to use a tread pattern that is not quite as chunky, so we'll opt for this piece up here. It's going to work out quite well. You can see with these shoes being small shoes, this is quite a small tread pattern. So the first thing we're going to want to do is basically get the shoes aligned with the tread pattern, and we're just going to mark it out. Get yourself a pen and basically roughly go around the shoe, pen or any kind of marker, something that you'll be able to see. It doesn't have to be perfect. We'll do a second one just behind, using the same tread pattern in the same position. So now that we've got our shoes marked onto the rubber, we need to move on to cutting this rubber. Now there is a bit of an easy way to do this. A lot of people think that cutting the rubber is actually really difficult, but it's actually pretty easy, providing you've got a nice sharp knife. Now what you want to do is you want to apply outward pressure to the cutting. So what I'm going to do for starters, I'm going to cut across here. So if I basically push down that and bend on that, when I cut it, you can see it just cuts like butter. So we're just going to cut this rubber, being very careful not to cut our fingers. It's certainly been there. And you can see how easy that is to cut. So we've got our piece there. Alright, so we're on a nice hard surface here. So the initial cut, what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to run the knife very carefully around where I have marked it on the truck tire retread. Very carefully. I'm not cutting all the way through. I'm just going deep enough to make the initial cut. And then I'm going to use that same technique that I used before. Now we have our first piece. What we're going to want to do is really rough this up. I have got a power sander with some very, very rough grit. I think this is 40 grit sandpaper. And we're gonna basically sand this. We'll sand the bottom of the shoe, giving the glue as many little bits and cavities to hold onto this and make it as strong as possible. Okay, we've scuffed it up pretty good. You can see it's very rough. The idea is we want it to be as rough as possible. Now something that I do that not a lot of other people do is I actually slice the rubber with a knife. And I'm actually going to do the same to the bottom of the shoe. This creates little crevices, so I'm just going to get my knife. I'm just going to run it lots of times. You can't see it at the moment when I open it up. So I'm going to get the glue to go inside all of these little crevices, and it's just going to add more strength to the rubber. Oh, sorry, more strength. That's just going to add more strength to the glue. Okay, time for gluing. Now I'm using Shoe Fix. This is basically just any kind of rubber shoe contact adhesive designed for when the sole of your shoe starts to come off. You just use the Shoe Fix, or shoe goo as it's commonly known, to attach it. I think most people use this, and then they maybe use a bit of a super glue to do any repairs if the rubber starts to come off. I've never actually had that problem where the rubber's come off unless I've worn the entire rubber down. This particular glue is the kind of glue where we're going to put it on one side, we're going to put it on the other side, and we need to let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. It basically needs to start to dry before we put it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the rubber like so. That way the glue's going to get all inside these little areas that we've opened up. And we're just going to start by putting a thin layer on. Now we've left this for a few minutes. The packet basically says you want to leave it until it's kind of starting to dry, and as you can see it's just kind of, I can touch it, it's not sticking to my finger, but it is leaving my fingerprints. Now what we're going to do, this is when we want to get our timber. And things get a little bit awkward here. Like I said, some people, you might choose to use a vise instead of the clamps. I'm going to use the clamps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one down here. Now I'm just going to lay the shoe roughly where I want it. I've got a little bit of excess rubber that we're going to trim down later on, but for now then what we're going to do is we're going to get the second piece of timber and we're going to put that on there. This is where it gets a little bit awkward. And that is pretty good. Probably could have used a slightly wider piece of timber, but that's fine. Ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to cut down all this excess rubber once the glue has set. So we'll leave that for at least 24 hours. We'll come back and I'll show you how to trim down the rest. Okay, it's 24 hours later. And hopefully our glue is nice and hard, which it certainly looks like it is. Let's get it out to our spa workbench and we can see how they've turned out. Okay, let's remove the clamps here. Flat shoe. Alright, so our next task is going to be to cut all of this excess rubber off. we've now got the rubber pretty much aligned with the sole the entire way around. Now, the reason we want to get the rubber as close to the sole as possible is we're actually going to put another line of glue all the way around following that seam. And that's just going to make it so you can see if I pull on that, you see it wants to separate. If we put the glue on the outside here, it kind of creates like almost like little strong section all the way around, and it's far less likely to split. Okay, so we've glued around the entire outside of it, and that's just really going to give it a lot more strength. And we let that dry for another 24 hours. Okay guys, so we've left our shoes for another 24 hours. There's pretty much one last step that is really up to you whether you want to do it. I swear by it, but you don't have to do it. And what it is, as you can see, the rubber plus the shoe sole end up being quite thick. If I push that down, it ends up being about an inch. That's quite thick. And the one thing it does not want to do is bend. This is a bit problematic if you are walking around all day wearing your Luge shoes, if you're at a competition or something like that. This doesn't like to bend, and what ends up happening is it ends up tearing the glue. So a bit of a trick that I do to all of my shoes is to actually slice across the tread. This is not going to hurt it. Believe me, you can cut as deep as you like into this tread and it will not hurt it. You can still brake as hard as you possibly can and it's not going to have any issues at all. I actually do this with all of my racing shoes. I do it with all of my free ride shoes, and I definitely recommend you do it. And I'll give you a quick rundown now on how to do that. Okay, so all we're going to do is look at the areas where the shoe wants to bend. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to run the knife just across that spot a couple of times, just like we have. And now you can see that when your foot bends, the shoe opens up some gaps and allows it to flex without tearing the glue apart. And that way, and it's also going to stay very stable. When you put your foot down on the road flat, you can see that that gap closes up. Trust me when I say that this doesn't come apart. As long as you don't cut all the way through, you're just cutting into the tread and allowing a little bit of breathing room for the rubber to flex. So now that we've put those cuts into the rubber, we can see that the shoe can bend and flex with your foot, and it's not going to tear the rubber off. Whereas this one here, it really doesn't want to bend at all. And when you end up walking around with it, it ends up tearing the glue apart. So we've gone through, we've added the slices to the bottom of the rubber, giving it lots of flex, and that's pretty much it, you know. Apart from a quick cleanup of the shoe to make it look a bit more stylish, and you are ready to rock and roll. Hey guys, well that's pretty much it. That's how we glue rubber to the bottom of our shoes, or stick it to the bottom of your shoes, depending on what technique you'd like to use. Hopefully you found this video very informative. We are looking forward to our next video. We hope to get out on the roads, except that COVID is playing a little bit of havoc. So we'll see how we go in terms of making some videos on how to actually ride the luge. Be sure to reach out to the Street Luge community on Street Luge Is Not a Crime on Facebook, or you can message me, or reach out to my page, Julian Slaney Street Luge, on Facebook as well. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Hopefully we can get into riding soon, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Hi, this is Abdul Mahzan, and I'm here to talk to you about how I secure my brake soles to my shoes. So let's see how this goes. All right, so what I have here, well, first of all, this is what I use, industrial strength Velcro. It comes in this roll, which is 15 foot long by 2 inches wide, and basically you get, excuse me, you get this roll, which is 15 feet of both the hook side and also the loop side. So what I do is, as you can see, I've got my soles here. So the left sole and the right sole, I use the Velcro. This is the hoops. Sorry, this is the loop side on the left and the hook side on the right. And that way, the opposite side goes on the shoe. And the reason I do this is to save on the Velcro. So I actually get to use both the hooks and the loop side equally. And I know people, they basically use the same type on both shoes or on both soles, and the same type on both shoes. But every time you have to change out your brakes, and then you end up putting more of the same stuff on new rubber, and then you end up running out of one and you have plenty of the other. So that's the reason why I do it this way. And the Velcro actually comes with its own adhesive, and just basically the glue there already. And yeah, you just slap it on, and see, it's already stuck on there. But you don't need to actually use any more additional glue. I'm sorry, I'm holding this in one hand. And pretty much it's ready to go. I just tap it on the floor, and yeah, it's good to go. But yeah, that's how I secure the brakes to my shoes. Peace out.
Take 97. What's up, everybody? My name is Matt Bartlett from Kennesaw, Georgia, and today I wanted to share with you how I do brakes for street luge. First off, I'll tell you what I use. It's called stall mat. I get it from Tractor Supply Company. What I do is I trace out my shoe on here, and I cut it out with a jigsaw, just a regular jigsaw. Make sure you hold the rubber towards the end of the table so you got a firm place to make your cut. That way the rubber doesn't do like this while you're trying to cut it. Once I get it cut out, I put these things that I made. It's just a piece of wood that's the shape of your shoe. It just helps to keep it straight. I put that in both of the shoes, and then I use this stuff right here called goop. I get this from Home Depot. It is a contact glue. Takes about 4 minutes to set it up. Just to let you know, like if you're ever at the bottom of the hill and you wanted to change your brakes real fast, basically what I do is I only glue the perimeter of the brakes. And so that way, if I'm ever at a race, I can just get it started with a razor knife and peel it off the shoe, take one of the freshly cut ones, glue around the outside, and then once I apply it and let it set up, I use duct tape at that point to hold it on, and from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, by the time you get there, it's ready to go. When I'm at home, I prefer to use clamps just because I can get even displacement all the way around the shoe to make sure it glues, because like I said, I only glue the perimeter of the shoe. That way it makes it easy to take off, and that's more than enough of this stuff to hold it on there. I like this stuff. I've tried different materials for braking, and this seems to be the best tried and true. It works in the rain pretty well, better than others. It definitely works in the dry. The only thing I wish it did was smoke when you used it. Other than that, it's one of the best braking materials I've ever used. And that's how I do brakes. Have a good one.
Hi everybody, it's Colby Parks from Canada here, and today I'm going to show you how to make your tires for your street luge shoes. I like to use Farm Implement tire from any farm supply store. It's really soft, has no steel belts, and it's easy to work with, and it brakes really well. Second thing you need to do is cut the sidewall off. So what you end up with is a piece that looks like this. So once you have a piece like this, you can figure out how many pairs you're going to get out of it. You take a stencil of your size, and then you trace it onto your rubber. You get a jigsaw. Your jigsaws are very cheap from any supply store. So what you need to use when cutting your rubber that doesn't have steel belts is the wood bit. has very aggressive teeth and it cuts the rubber. So the best thing I've seen and used for cutting rubber is if you have a table that has a hole in it, so the rubber doesn't vibrate while you cut. Once you got your rubber cut out, you'll have a little frayed bits on the side that you need to work down. You're gonna have to use a bench grinder or some other grinder to smooth out the edges and to make your shape. And also on the back here on all tires there's some semi-plastic coating, and your glue will not stick to that, so you need to scuff that up either with a bench grinder or a wire wheel. Bench grinders like this, I just checked, are about 50 bucks on Facebook Marketplace. They're super cheap. Scuff up the back. Doesn't have to be perfect, but make sure you get around the edges so the glue sticks around there especially. After you have your rubber cut out in the shape you want, same shape for your shoe, next thing is to put the Velcro on. I like to use fuzz and the hooks for each side, and this way you don't have a whole lot of hooks and a whole little bit of fuzz, or vice versa. You get contact cement. You buy these little paint brushes, they're like $1 for like 50 of them, so they're disposable and really easy to use. Take off the... Some people just use the adhesive that comes on the Velcro, but I like to use contact cement just to be doubly safe. So get a lot of it, spread it thin all over. Spread it thin, but to make sure there's no spots missing, so there's no weak points. Now what you can do with these, if you know you're going to be gluing them next day, is take the plastic off before so the glue dries out. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to put the glue on with the stick. There's still adhesive on the Velcro. Wait 15 minutes or so, follow the instructions that are on the can. For 15 minutes, take your strips, and it only sticks once. So when you put it on, make sure it's right the first time. Put it on there, smooth it out so there's no air bubbles. Now, if you're doing 2 strips like this, it's very important. It's okay if you leave a gap, but do not overlap, because then you feel like you permanently have a rock in your shoe. And it's annoying. So that's on there, maybe let it, if you have time, let it stay there for 24 hours. Cut off the excess. Once you do that, shoe that's ready to go. You stick it on, you're good to ride. That's how you make your shoes.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick. I'm just here today to give a rundown on how I make street luge brake shoes. So firstly, we start off, we have our rubber. I use truck retreads, and this is an old one. It's already been cut to size. What I like to do as well, just to make sure that the glue sticks, is I'll take a blade and I like to just cut some little V-notches across the sole all the way down. It just gives a bit of a better surface, I guess, for the glue to stick as well. So first thing, now that the rubber's cut to size, what I'll do to begin with is I'll take a wire brush and some acetone, and I'll just give drop some acetone onto the sole, give it a good scrub with the wire brush just to get any last little bits of dirt and debris off. It also roughs up the surface so the glue sticks a little better too. So I have my shoe. I prefer the old Converse style high tops, which I get cheap from Kmart, and the sole. My preferred glue here is Quick Grip or any contact adhesive as well. So I cover the sole and the shoe in the Quick Grip. I wait until it actually is fully dry, and then I press the two together. Now when you're waiting for the glue to dry, my preferred method of choice isn't using clamps. I find that clamps just put too much pressure in one spot, not enough in others, and I don't get a very good finish. What I prefer to do in this case, once it's together like this, I'll just get some duct tape, cover the shoe end to end and around, so I wrap them up fairly well, not too tight, and then I'll leave them in a warm spot to dry for a day or two, and then away they go. Having a look through, doing it that way, I think the key with brake soles, of course, is preparation. You do a good job straight off, you're less likely to blow a sole at an event and slow things down as well. So here's one I prepared earlier. This is the finished product of my old trusty, and here we go. So you can see there the sole is on there nice and tight, and that's been serving me well for nearly 12 months now as well. Thanks.
Thanks to those who contributed to this video and showed us how they glue the rubber onto their shoes. Be sure to share this video. The more we can spread these videos, the more we can get people into the sport. And make sure you check out Street Luge is Not a Crime or Julian Slaney Street Luge on Facebook. See you next time.